So for our first session today, I am very excited to welcome two very experienced engineering leaders, people who have lots of experience building innovative products, taking them to market, running them at scale, scaling up teams, building great engineering cultures. So please help me welcome to the stage Alexis Lê-Quôc, CTO and co-founder of Datadog, and Prashant Pandey, head of engineering at Asana.
Thanks, Brandon. Thank you. Hello, everybody. It was great to be here. Prashant, thank you very much for making some time. And I think we have a couple of interesting questions. I have a couple of interesting questions, to ask you, or hopefully interesting. And then, obviously, we're looking forward to hear from the audience. So maybe we can start. So I think Brandon introduced me, but I'd love to hear more about you, Asana. Can you give us a few words?
Yeah. So my background is actually more in the infrastructure space, lower levels of the stack. I started off at IBM Research, working on storage systems, databases, and then eventually, before Asana, I was at AWS, building DynamoDB. And so that was really exciting because this is now ancient history, but the revolution of the cloud democratizing how companies could build quickly, it was really a game changer from where things were before. It used to take a lot of VC money to buy expensive Sun servers to start your company back in the old days when I started. And so that was really exciting. But as I had gone through that journey of being part of larger organizations and building up larger teams, even though I was thinking a lot about technical problems, more and more of my time was observing teams just coordinating and how much overhead that coordination was. And so in my mind, the value that managers and leaders were adding was basically providing that coordination layer. And so I ended up chatting with Dustin Moskowitz, who's our Asana CEO, about the problem of coordination. And they were hiring for an infrastructure leader at the time. And even though building DynamoDB was very, very exciting, solving this problem of how do teams coordinate together and how through software we can really make that a lot more effortless was such an exciting problem for me to be part of and to solve. So yeah, I've been there for 9+ years now. And the thing that keeps me there is basically we are making progress on that problem. So we have very, very large customers, including my old employer, really getting value from making collaboration and coordination so much more efficient. At the same time, we keep encountering more things that, especially at the enterprise scale, people want us to build, and that will be the next level of improvement for them. So there's lots of challenging problems to go solve. And a lot of the premise of the product as we were building it was we will build this work graph, which will capture how work and people and timelines are all connected, and documents are all connected with each other. And then AI will solve a lot of other problems because you'll be able to see how to utilize that data and how to make things better. And even 5 years ago, that seemed like a pipe dream. There were things we were doing, but it was scratching the surface. And it's very exciting to see large language models now provide a much more powerful tool that we can really make true on that promise. So that's something that I'm very excited about what the next leg of the journey is, helping enterprises and really large organizations coordinate better, and especially coordinate better because Asana allows them to connect this work in a way that was not possible before.
Okay, and maybe for folks in the room who are not using Asana or not familiar with it, like what is it? What does it do?
Yeah, great question. Basically, if you think about any team collaborating, you have this problem of knowing who's doing what by when. That is the essential premise of the product, is that if people understood what is being done, who's doing it, by when does it need to be done, and you connect it up to the goals of the organization, of the why, then you make coordination a lot easier. People are more aligned. You're able to measure how you're doing and make progress faster. And this problem is not a development team problem or a product team problem or a sales team problem, marketing. It's across pretty much any team of human beings trying to solve a problem will have this. So the way we built the product was in this generalized way. And the value our customers get from it actually expands a lot when multiple teams are using it, because then it starts to help with cross-team collaboration, which is a little bit of a conundrum because for us, because nobody is buying for that. People buy for an individual team problem, but a lot of the value we provide is for cross-org coordination. So that's a fun challenge for us to figure out and educate customers and help us understand how we can capture that value better for them and explain it faster so that people are able to get that value from the product faster.
Got it. And is there something that people don't know about Asana that you feel like?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, like there is a wide variety of, when we look at our customers, a lot of customers are like, we adopted Asana for this use case, and so that's all they will use it for. And whereas we have other customers where they might have one or two champions who really start to understand, oh, for pretty much any coordination problem, I can apply this. Anywhere where I have to track what's going on, I need to have automation around, auto-assign these tasks, get this approval. Asana just makes that so much easier to track. I will use it in 17 places. So there are customers who are getting so much more value from the product than the single or the 5 use cases that they adopted it for. Yeah. So that's to me, the unlock. And obviously, I see it as part of it is a go-to-market problem for us to solve. Part of it is a product problem for us to solve, is just make these use cases a lot more easy to understand.
I see. Okay. Okay, so maybe I want to zoom in a little bit, maybe zoom in on you, as it were. We've seen, it's almost a truism, but there's a lot going on in tech, right? Purely from a technology standpoint, like new things. So I'm curious, like, how do you there's probably more things that happen every day than you can pay attention to. So yeah. How do you, what kind of filter do you have? How do you figure out, okay, I need to focus on this, and this, this particular piece of technology is promising, and that one, I'll let it be, and hopefully I don't miss out.
Yeah. So, it has changed quite a bit over my career, over time. So there's obviously, there have been kind of a few resources which have been really good. Earlier on in my career, there was a newsletter called The Morning Paper, where Agent Coiler used to pretty much like 4 mornings a week send out a new research paper about a very wide class of problems. And instead of picking out papers yourself, it was good to have that resource to go just read and learn about the industry. Over time, I also started following, when Twitter was a thing, I used to follow a bunch of folks there it was a good news source. Frankly, recently, a lot of it is coming from my team, where in Asana we have projects. There's one called Interesting Articles, which is about a broad set of interests. Then we have engineering interesting articles, security interesting articles. So there's a lot of incoming just from my colleagues, things people are reading, and that ends up being a very good filter of what is the team interested in. So I get a lot from there as well. So that's frankly been my primary source, especially as a lot of what we are all reading right now is about large language models, how people are applying them, security implications. A lot of this stuff, there's so much internal interest within the company that we're all kind of teaching each other and sharing resources.
Okay. And so now I can zoom out a little bit and think about sort of adoption of those new technologies, across the team. So, I'd love, obviously you've been a data customer for some time now, and thank you for that. But just maybe walk us through an example, like how does a team at Asana or groups of team at Asana adopt new stuff? Like what's the process?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, we've been using Datadog since 2016, and I had joined a couple of years before that, and the team was basically engineers coming out of Google and Facebook, mostly at that early stage. And then I was coming from Amazon. All of us had similar expectations that the technology team was responsible for building, maintaining, operating, and the whole life cycle of software, including the ops part of it. There wasn't a separate team. And to do that well, so the reason to do that is because you just build better software that way, right? So that was a very well-established principle for the team even at that time. We knew we wanted to measure very deeply, a lot more than what, and we were on cloud when we started. We were on AWS. And so CloudWatch wasn't enough. I mean, just the granularity of what was being measured, the time period at that time was not enough. So to really understand software, we needed to monitor it. And we were doing it ourselves with custom scripts to start with. Then we tried out Graphite. And really what we were seeing was that we could choose to invest a lot more there, or we could build Asana, the product. And we're like, come on, we got to pull these engineers and go build the Asana product. Wish there was somebody doing this. And there were a few choices at the time, but Datadog was one of the original companies helping monitor AWS. So a team decided to just give it a pilot. That's the standard way things happen, not very top-down. Teams decide that we've been building and struggling with Graphite for some time. Let's try out a managed solution. And so the team tried it, loved it, and then it was down to figuring out how much it would cost and how that compared to us investing it in the technologies ourselves. And really even seeing the trajectory of what you all were building then, it was like, yeah, it'll take us too long to invest in all this, and it's better for a bunch of companies to give you money to do it rather than us investing on our own little silo.
Okay, good, that makes sense. And so you're also a SaaS provider. So I'm curious now, if you change a little bit of perspective, how do companies adopt Asana? What's the process again?
Yeah, so I mean, it has changed over the years, like just the way we see adoption happen. And so we are at the stage now where it's multiple models of adoption happening based on which customer you're talking about. A lot of our bread and butter is still very bottom-up adoption, where somebody hears about the product, hopefully some folks here as well, saying, okay, let me try this thing out for just my team. And then they see value from it. It becomes stickier. They start with the free tier. They want to use some of the premium features. They start with a credit card. They try that out. But if it's a big organization, very soon it gets to the point where IT comes in. We're talking with them about broader adoption, about how payment will work when multiple teams across the company are using it. And then that allows us to get into this motion where we are talking to more senior decision makers who can figure out they're getting a lot of value here, what would a broader deployment do? But we're also seeing top-down at this point of our journey, where you have leaders who've had success with Asana in one org, moving to another org, or just our sales team engaging and being able to tell the story of how adoption of Asana has been a turning point for companies in terms of efficiency and just alignment. And we're seeing more adoption in that way as well. So it's still a mix. And that's what I expect it to be, because we want to build a product that people are excited to use, as opposed to something that becomes a top-down mandate, which has been like the history of enterprise software has been more forced adoption, which I think, one, isn't a fun product to build or a fun product to use, and two, I think as we progress in the software industry, is not going to work.
Okay. That makes sense. And obviously, I think in the past, maybe 18 months, there's been a bit of a change in the mood, I think across our industry and beyond. So can you tell us a little bit more about how that's affected that process, how it's affected conversations with the focus of your customers?
Definitely. There's so there's a couple of things that have shifted. One is once you get to paying for software, a lot more scrutiny comes in about what is this expense for, what is the ROI. And also, as people are adopting software, it has gone from what is the best for my employee engagement, or what is the best for the next stage of growth for the company, has become much more about how can I get efficiency from every software I purchase, how can it make our company more efficient. And that's just the change in the market in terms of how investors are thinking about companies, how employees are thinking about companies. People want to be efficient. So that's been a change, where for us, that's been part of the story always, is that you drive alignment, and that leads to efficiency, because you're spending less time on coordination and getting better results. And this is showing up a lot more in enterprise conversations as well, where the larger the customer, the more effort they're putting into making sure they're streamlining their purchasing decisions and basing it more on value generated, so that ROI conversation is much more important part of adoption and selling than it was.
Okay. Now, how about AI? I mean, which is sort of the topic du jour.
Good point. That is, especially with enterprises, like if you go into a conversation now, that is one of the most important pieces of the story that they want to hear from any of their vendors, is how are you going to make us more efficient, and how will you unlock the value that you provide to us through this new revolution that's happening with, as I was talking about earlier, with large language models. And they are, I think in two ways, they are feeling like they want to make sure they understand their story of how LLMs will make them more efficient or will help their business, and they want their vendors to be part of that story and be able to tell that story. So that's been really exciting, because I feel like we have a unique perspective and a unique story to tell, which very excited about the work you all are doing as well. I think in both the just observability space, the promise of AI is so huge. Similarly, in the how people work together, there is so much, which is part of the observability problem as well, right? But there is so much benefit that we can derive from understanding when a team is working well together versus not. That it is, it's very exciting for us to see that pull from customers, as opposed to just us pushing why learning from their work patterns and giving them better ideas is going to be a game changer for their business.
Okay, cool, great. I think that's, I want to open it up to the audience.
Wonderful. So we've had some questions submitted. As a reminder, you can submit more questions at Slido. And you can also upvote the questions that you would like to have asked. But this question is for either of you. How do you negotiate large architectural changes that come from scale or business changes? How do you balance those with the demand for innovation and new features?
Do you want to? Okay, I'll take it. I mean, so for us, it's obviously not an either or it cannot be cast on an either or. And I guess I think we, at least in the case of Datadog, I feel, and I'm sure it's probably similar. I think if you operate in SaaS, it cannot be an either or, because you can't say, well, either stop touching anything and just keep the lights on, or conversely, well, forget about production and just build new features. So I think at least where we landed is we landed on effectively on a quarterly basis, kind of balancing, okay, what do we need to build? And so for you all, what's going to make sense? And then in terms of, for instance, quality of service, where are we? Are we and using SLOs and stuff like that? Are we in a position where we can move the cursor a little bit, one direction or another, but it just cannot go. It never goes to the extreme, because that's a recipe for disaster. So I think, lastly, I would say by making this choice fairly transparent, at least to the team internally, it's like, yeah, this quarter we have to focus on that, and it makes those conversations just a lot easier, because I think we're just trying to get everybody on the same page. Like, here's what we're going to do, and here's why, and here's effectively the indicators that we can use to decide we do more shoring up maybe existing infrastructure, or we do more, slightly more features. It's all based on data that we'll make available to everyone inside the company. So I think that's been helpful.
Yeah, similar. The thing we try to do is make both of these like business questions. What is the investment? What is the return we are going to get? And one key thing is, even for very technical decisions, bring your stakeholders along in that process. So starts off with your product partners, your PMs, seeing the value of these investments, so casting it more in terms of what are the velocity benefits, what are the features that will become possible, similarly for like one of the big ones is, as we adopt LLMs, what is the infrastructural investments we need to make? These are exactly the questions we're asking. What becomes possible because of this, and what is that worth to us? Yeah, one of the important things with the enterprise SaaS is that customers are always looking at this, is this product getting better over time? And so you've got to be really careful of that pace of innovation within the company. You've got to keep delivering. And so you have to balance that and do double duty when you can, like get two for one.
How do you map an engineering vision to a corporate vision on a time span of 3 to 5 years?
I'll be honest, there's not a huge amount of 3 to 5 year planning that we do of what exactly we'll build. It's much more like, I would say almost a risk register that we have that we maintain in security, but I think of that in engineering as well. What are the things that will require more investment just because of the scale we are going to hit, or because some of the technologies are going to change? And the key thing is to provide visibility to that, again, to stakeholders, partners, business, and product, so that it's not a big surprise once we have hit those milestones where those investments become important. For example, we are doing a big effort right now to do a lot better on horizontal scaling. So convert more of our architecture, like the back end is already very horizontally scalable, but there's still like on the front end, some components that kind of go very broad across lots of customers. and we want to chunk those up so that those become easy to scale horizontally. And we coupled that with a business need to have more data centers globally with the data localization problem. So we did a lot of work, precursor work towards that as part of going multi-region across the world. So that's one of the 2-for-1 kind of things I was talking about, that we had a vision of what we wanted to do, but we also waited for an opportunity which would provide a much more clear business win in terms of timing that work.
Yeah, I think it probably echoes similarly. There's obviously a lot of value in planning. Let's just figure out, okay, what are we going to do? Mostly, I think, to clarify the thinking and also to communicate, as we see that planning as largely a communication tool. Now, that said, 3 to 5 years, if I guess 3.5 years ago, if you put yourself, you try to rewind time and imagine what you were thinking, January 2020, what the next 3 to 5 years would look like. It turned out not to be true at all. It was completely different. So I think that's that if anything, that recent experience has taught us that there is value in planning, but you can't just go and become obsessed with it, because probably you're going to get it wrong. I think this was the Mike Tyson quote, right? You get your plan stops once you start getting punched in the face, or more or less. So that's, I think we have to be more important for us is that we remain nimble, and so we do some amount of planning to figure out, so that it's not just everybody's going to run in random directions, and but at the same time, it's not like, well, that's the plan and realities change, and while the plan's the plan, so we can't do anything about it. So it's that balance, I think, that nuance that's particularly important. And personally, obviously, I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone 3 to 5 years from now. So take it day by day. Just that's one way to do it.
Yeah, and frankly, that's one of the most important things as we are thinking about our AI and LLM investment. We are staying far away from even making a 1-year plan there, because the technology is changing so fast, and what's possible for the product and what customers expect, we think 6 months from now it'll be completely different than what it is today. So the way we are thinking of that investment is more, how do we build our infrastructure to be able to set and tear down tent cities very, very quickly, as opposed to setting down strong foundations on which to build a castle in 3 years. Even though for a lot of foundational engineering, that's the way we think of setting down very strong foundations. In this case, you want to be super nimble, even in your architecture investments. So that's one of the cases where we are trying to shorten the timelines of planning drastically as we think about it.
I think that leads in well to this next question, which is, to what extent do you believe that large tech companies like Datadog and Asana are being reactive to the hype around AI versus working back from customer need?
I mean, I could say maybe I'll date myself. So I remember probably 2003, around early aughts, like when mapping, there was mapping on the internet, and you go to MapQuest and then you display, you say, I want to go here, and display the map, and you click there at 4 arrows, you go to west, north, south, and east, and you could go and you reload the page. And I remember when Google Maps came out, you could drag, and the thing would look like you could drag forever, and it'd show you the maps like of the entire planet. I was like, oh my God, this is like crazy. So, and then it became sort of the baseline, right? You can to some extent if you're old enough like me, but it's hard to imagine, wow, what was it like before? And so I think particularly for large language models, it did something very tricky to our minds, which is what we thought was sort of pinnacle of human creativity and the human mind, which is the ability to express oneself, at least in a sort of credible manner, it was actually computable. We thought this was like, okay, no computer will ever break that barrier, and yet it did, and really quickly, and the advances were really quick, much faster than anything I could remember really, and so that's sort of reshuffled. Like to some extent, yes, there's some amount of reactivity, right? So it's like there was the I'd say, Chat GPT-ish things where you say, okay, yeah, a computer can do some image recognition, do some language recognition, but it's not that great, and you sort of can't really trust it to the, you type something, you ask the machine to summarize, and the summary comes back really good, like, really high quality. So I think that messed with our minds collectively. It's like, well, we don't really understand what the machine can do. And then conversely, if you're trying to build a robot to bicycle, it's pretty hard, like in all conditions. So things we thought were really trivial, this is very easy for my kids to bike, and they're pretty small. And yet, their language capability is not as advanced in some way than LLMs. Because of that inversion, I think everybody's like, okay, well, the future, looks pretty open. So I think that's been our approach. Is we don't know exactly, as you were saying, what the technology will be able to do 6 months from now, because 12 months ago, 18 months ago, we didn't envision that LLMs would sort of burst into the scene. And so we have to, I think, remain relatively humble and just figure out reactivity, I think, in the sense like we got to learn what you want, what's going to work, what you're going to trust, what you're going to distrust, what's going to be useful. We have to learn all that. And it's a sort of a collective learning. It goes beyond, I think, Datadog and in Asana. I think it's society, almost like at the scale of society, we're definitely in uncharted territories. And there's no, our goal, at least, for as Datadog, is to make your lives easier, right? So build something useful. You're at the cusp of discovering what that is gradually, and so we have to be reactive. We have to be able to turn around. We can't make a sort of long-range predictions on, we know that the application of LLM is going to be, the killer app is going to be that, because very, very few people in our industry knew of the potential 2 years ago. Like, a couple of researchers were getting excited and producing, but it was very, very confidential. So I think it's by necessity, and it's I want to differentiate between the sort of the excitement and then this all the way to the hype. I think like with anything, and SaaS, I think, is very good for that. We'll build something, you'll tell us, yeah, it's great or it's bad. If it's bad, it's okay, we have to go back to the drawing board and iterate and come back, until we're able to build something that is useful and valuable.
Yeah, I think there's so much in that question, but first, one thing is, are LLMs hype, and how much hype is around them? I mean, even listening to Sam Altman, GPT-4, like as you use it, you become less impressed with it, because it'll first surprise you with how good it is, and then it'll surprise you at how silly it is in some aspects of what you were expecting. So it definitely doesn't it's not like there is zero hype. It's more, we are thinking about it wrong for sure right now. In some ways, we are thinking too small, and there is, I think there is a lot of risk with AI, and I'm not alone in that, obviously. And then on the other side, I think that there are some things that we're trying to apply it to which will turn out to be wrong. So that there is some amount of hype, but mostly, no, this is a big deal. This is a huge change in our industry. This is a very important technology. So I think people should be learning about it and figuring out how to react to it. And second thing is, as far as how I think about our roadmap and how we've thought about it, leveraging the work graph we are building of capturing what is happening with teams, how they think about work, and using machine learning and tools like that to then provide value back to customers from their work graph has been part of our vision from very early on, and now the technology seems to be in a place where we can really leverage it. So for us, it's like those two things are coming together, and I'm very excited about it.
Wonderful. Well, we are out of time. There are a lot more great questions. Thank you all for your participation. Please give our Fireside Chat members a warm round of applause.
Awesome. Thanks so much.